Welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're heading back to ancient Israel to explore the wisdom of King Solomon,
Ooh,
specifically as it's laid out in 1 Kings chapter 4.
all right.
Solomon's known for his legendary wisdom, right?
Absolutely.
And this chapter gives us a glimpse into how he put that wisdom to work in his kingdom.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we think of ancient rulers, we often picture conquerors, those kinds of guys.
Yeah.
But First Kings 4, it paints a different picture of Solomon.
Really?
Yeah, it emphasizes his incredible ability to organize, to create systems that fostered peace and prosperity for his people.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those details.
Yeah.
So the chapter describes this really intricate system Solomon set up to manage his kingdom.
Uh-huh.
He had advisors for every aspect of governance, from scribes to priests to military commanders.
Wow.
It's like he built this massive, well-oiled machine.
And that's a key takeaway right there.
Yeah.
Solomon understood the power of delegation.
Right.
He didn't try to micromanage everything himself. He empowered others to take ownership and responsibility.
Mm.
And it's a leadership principle that's just as relevant today
Oh,
as it was thousands of years ago. Think about any successful organization.
Yeah.
It thrives because leaders delegate effectively.
Right.
And they create a structure where everyone can contribute their talents.
What I find really fascinating is this system of 12 districts
Oh, yeah.
that Solomon set up.
Uh-huh.
Each one was responsible for providing food and supplies for the royal household for 1 month out of the year.
Wow.
Talk about a well-planned supply chain.
Right. It's brilliant on so many levels.
Yeah.
Not only did it ensure a steady supply of provisions for the king and his court,
Mhm.
but it also prevented any one region from being overburdened.
Right.
It fostered a sense of shared responsibility and interdependence.
Like a nationwide potluck
I love that.
where everyone contributes their specialty.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of provisions, the text goes into some pretty incredible detail about the sheer abundance of food that Solomon's kingdom produced.
It's amazing.
30 measures of fine flour, 60 measures of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 oxen from the pastures,
Yeah.
100 sheep.
Wow.
And that's not even counting all the deer and fowl.
It makes you hungry.
It really does.
It's important to remember, though, that these provisions weren't just for Solomon's personal indulgence.
Right.
He had a huge household to maintain.
Oh, yeah.
Official servants, guests.
Yeah.
This abundance reflects a culture of generosity and hospitality.
Right.
It speaks to a mindset of abundance, ensuring everyone's needs were met.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about material prosperity, was it?
No.
The chapter really emphasizes Solomon's wisdom as the key to his success.
Absolutely.
He was known throughout the ancient world for his knowledge and understanding,
Yeah,
attracting scholars and dignitaries from far and wide.
that's right.
And this wisdom, according to the text, was a gift from God. This divine inspiration allowed Solomon to govern, effectively excel, in various fields of knowledge and make wise judgments that benefited his entire kingdom.
It's amazing to think about, right?
It really is.
A leader whose wisdom was so profound, it's still talked about thousands of years later.
I know, it's pretty remarkable.
It really is.
It makes you wonder, what can we learn from Solomon's example,
Yeah,
even in our modern world?
that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
While the context may be different of the underlying principles of leadership, organization, and wisdom that we see in Solomon's reign,
Yeah.
they're incredibly relevant to our lives today.
So true.
Whether we're running a business, leading a team, or simply trying to navigate the complexities of our own lives, there's a lot we can glean from Solomon's story.
So it's not just a dusty old tale from a history book.
No, not at all.
It's actually a treasure trove of practical wisdom that we can apply to our own lives.
Exactly. And as we dive deeper into this chapter, we'll uncover even more of those treasures and see how they can help us live more fulfilling, meaningful lives.
Love it. Can't wait. It's fascinating to think about this idea of divinely inspired wisdom. It's like Solomon was tapping into a source of knowledge that went beyond the ordinary.
It's interesting how that resonates even today. In a world that often prioritizes logic and data,
Right.
there's still this deep-seated human need for something more, for a sense of guidance that transcends our rational minds.
It's true. I mean, think about how many people find solace in prayer or meditation,
Right.
seeking answers and wisdom beyond their own limited understanding.
Absolutely. And even outside of formal religious practices,
Yeah.
there's a growing interest in things like mindfulness and intuition,
Uh-huh.
recognizing that sometimes the most profound insights come from a place beyond our conscious thoughts.
Exactly.
It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that there's this vast well of wisdom that we can tap into
Yeah,
if we're open to it.
right. And that openness, that humility is a key part of cultivating wisdom.
Exactly.
So how do we actually cultivate that wisdom in our own lives?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's not like we can just ask for a divine download of knowledge like Solomon supposedly did.
Well, the good news is wisdom isn't a one-time download.
Look at
It's
that.
an ongoing process.
Right.
It's a journey of learning, reflecting, refining our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
So it's more about the practice than achieving some kind of ultimate wisdom status.
Precisely. It's about the daily choices we make, the habits we cultivate, the way we approach challenges and opportunities.
Okay. I like that it makes wisdom feel more attainable.
Yeah.
Less like something that's reserved for, ancient kings and philosophers.
Absolutely. It's something we can all strive for, regardless of our background or beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most powerful ways to cultivate wisdom is to learn from our experiences.
Okay, so it's not just about reading books or listening to podcasts.
Right.
It's about actually going out there and living.
Exactly. It's about paying attention to the lessons that life throws our way,
Right.
both the good and the bad. It's about reflecting on our mistakes, celebrating our victories, and constantly seeking ways to grow and evolve.
And sometimes those lessons come from the toughest experiences,
Right.
right? The setbacks, the heartbreaks,
Absolutely.
the moments that force us to reevaluate everything we thought we knew.
That's where true resilience and wisdom are forged.
Yeah.
It's in those moments of adversity that we're challenged to dig deep, to find our inner strength, and to emerge from the fire even stronger and wiser than before.
It's like that saying, smooth seas don't make skillful sailors.
That's right.
We need those storms to really test our mettle
Absolutely.
and help us develop the skills we need to navigate life's choppy waters.
And that's one of the most important lessons we can learn from Solomon's story.
Okay.
Even though he was blessed with extraordinary wisdom, he also faced his share of challenges and setbacks.
Right.
But he never stopped learning. He never stopped seeking wisdom. And he ultimately used his experiences to become an even wiser and more compassionate leader.
It's inspiring to think that even though Solomon lived thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
the lessons from his life can still guide us on our own paths to wisdom.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of ancient wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
It transcends time and place, offering insights that are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Oh, it's so true.
And as we continue to explore this chapter, we'll uncover even more of those timeless gems and see how they can empower us to live more meaningful and fulfilling lives in the modern world.
As we've been talking about Solomon's wisdom and his leadership, there's this one image from 1 Kings 4 that really stuck with me.
Okay.
It's that description of his kingdom, where everyone lives securely under his vine and under his fig tree.
Right.
Doesn't that just evoke this sense of peace and contentment?
It really does. And I think it speaks to a longing we all share, even today,
Yeah.
In a world that's constantly pushing us to do more, achieve more, acquire more.
Mm-hmm.
We crave that sense of stability,
Yeah.
that feeling of being rooted and at peace.
It's like we're all searching for our own version of that vine and fig tree,
Right.
that place where we can truly feel at home, both internally and externally.
Exactly. And while we might not all have literal vineyards in our backyards,
Right.
I think that metaphor points to something deeper.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a sense of inner peace, finding contentment in the present moment,
Right.
appreciating the simple things that bring us joy.
So it's not just about simplifying our lives or decluttering our homes.
Right.
It's about cultivating a mindset of gratitude and appreciation for what we already have.
Exactly. And that's where I think the spiritual dimension of Solomon's wisdom comes in.
Okay.
Remember, his wisdom was seen as a gift from God.
Right.
And it was through that connection to a higher power that he found true peace and fulfillment.
It's interesting because even if we don't approach it from a strictly religious perspective,
Yeah.
the idea of connecting with something larger than ourselves resonates with a lot of people today.
It really does.
Whether it's through nature, art, music, or simply acts of kindness and compassion. There's a recognition that true fulfillment comes from something beyond our individual ego.
It's about tapping into that wellspring of love, wisdom, and interconnectedness that exists beyond our limited perception. And that connection can be incredibly grounding and empowering,
Yeah.
especially in times of uncertainty and challenge.
It's like having a spiritual anchor that helps us weather the storms of life.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most powerful lessons we can learn from Solomon's story,
Okay.
True wisdom isn't just about accumulating knowledge or achieving success.
Right.
It's about cultivating a deep connection with our inner selves, with each other, and with something larger than ourselves. It's about living a life of purpose, meaning, and compassion.
And those qualities, I believe, are the true hallmarks of a wise and fulfilling life.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the wisdom of Solomon, I want to leave our listener with this thought. If Solomon's wisdom was indeed a gift from God, then perhaps wisdom is something that's available to all of us. Perhaps it's not something we need to earn or achieve,
Right.
but something we can cultivate through intention, humility, and a willingness to open ourselves to guidance and inspiration from a source beyond our limited ego.
That's a powerful reminder that we all have the potential for wisdom within us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into 1 Kings chapter 4. It's been a fascinating exploration of ancient wisdom and its relevance for our lives today.